Hello, Janeen.
Hi,
Thank you
Miss
so
Janeen.
much. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
Yep. Like I said, you were on, you have your own podcast, the Feminist Podcast. And I absolutely love that you guys talk about all things about women's wellness. And you have a recent series about the chakras and
Yeah.
going through the different chakras and talking about how you can tell when you're not balanced in the
hmm
chakras. And I just wanted to talk about that. Like, I'm realizing that my chakras are completely out of balance.
Most people's are, so don't feel bad about that. No one's in ever in like complete alignment, or very few people. And if they say they do all the time, it's not realistic.
Mhm. How do you come back to center? Like, if you know you're out of balance, how do you come back to like or even find your center if you've always been out of functioning from an out of balance kind of way?
hmm For me, especially as I've gotten older over time and getting to know yourself, so you really want to be start being connected with yourself. And if you're not, if you feel like there's a disconnect between you and self, that would be where I would first start. Is paying attention to what your feelings are and what your body is telling you, and really like taking a pause to reflect and like, why am I reacting this way to a certain thing? Or why do I feel this way in this particular moment, but maybe not another moment? Or why do I feel physically drained or stressed or have fog? So it's really just like exploring yourself and getting to know yourself. And it's in those moments that then you can start recognizing when something's off. You start putting the pieces together, because now you've been exploring like what's triggering these things to feel off, right? And then you can say like, okay, I'm really moody right now. Like what's going on, right? What space am I in right now? Am I always moody in those particular spaces or around these particular people? And that's when you can start saying, okay, maybe I need to remove myself from certain situations in order to like center myself and find realignment. And if you can't remove yourself from certain situations, then it's like, okay, what are other tools that I can utilize? Can I take a step? Can I walk away? Like if you're at work, right, and you have a job to do, and let's just say, this is an example, I don't know, like certain coworkers are just, you and them don't vibe well. But this is your place of employment, and you have to coexist with these persons while you're at this place of employment, right? So there are not many choices unless you choose to leave that place of employment, so which is not an option for everyone. So how do you coexist with other persons who may affect your energy levels? And so for those moments, it's like take time to walk away, right? Have a private lunch break. I mean, it could be anything. This, I'm talking about relationships, but it could be, people, places, things are always, bring about different triggers within us. And we feel different things from all of these, external factors that then affect us internally, mentally, and physically.
I like
If that
that. So
makes sense.
yeah,
Okay.
it does. So you basically you got to recognize your triggers and
Yes.
then do like kind of a wellness check. Like, why am I being
Mhm.
triggered? And am I always be? Is there a pattern? And removing yourself from the trigger until you can explore and do all the self work, and then come back to it from a more stabilized point of view. I love that.
Right. And a lot of ways that people find, I mean, I know it's probably going to sound so cliche, but, meditation, going out in nature. I love being by bodies of water. That really is tranquil for me, and it gives me peace of mind, and it eases my stress. It makes me feel really calm. But I live in New York City. So I'm not going to a body of water in the winter if there's snow outside. Like, that's just not what I'm going to do. Right. So what can I do? I can take a nice bubble bath. I can take a nice long shower. Because for me, water does something to me energetically where I feel just like calmer and more zen.
Mhm.
So it can be anything. Exercise, as simple as exercise. I mean, people talk about it every time, all the time, right? Just getting your blood flowing, getting your body moving can release stressors and bring about more calm as well. I love to journal. I enjoy tarot. That's
Mhm.
how we met in that space, right?
Mm.
So I love doing, pulling a card and seeing if the card that I pull is connecting with how I'm, feeling. So there are so many different methods that we can utilize in order to kind of bring us back to that center. And it's just about finding which one works for us. And normally that's going to be trial and error. You're going to,
Mhm.
start recognizing those patterns and start recognizing the triggers. And then once you're more in tune with yourself and your body and your emotions, then you can start discovering, okay, what are some things that I can do to like bring me back to this Zen moment. And then you start doing them. Some people can't meditate. It's frustrating for them. They're like, I can't do it. Yeah.
And
So,
that
and
is so me. That
yeah,
is so me.
yeah, when I say meditate, for me, I can't meditate in silence. I need
Mhm.
like music in the background, or journaling is meditative to me. So it can really be however it is that feels good to you, finding what works for you to bring you back to that space of more clarity and more calm.
I just heard recently on a different podcast, Stars and Destruct podcast, Aubrey Marcus said that and I'm paraphrasing, but the thing that you don't want to do is the thing that's going to level you up. So for me, meditating is the thing I don't want to do it.
Mhm,
Like I,
mhm.
I know that sitting there, it just isn't for me, but I'm doing certain things to make meditation more easy for me, like cutting caffeine and, getting more stabilized so that I can sit there and meditate. And because I know that that's the one thing that it's the one thing I don't want to do. So that's the thing I should do.
Right. But again, to a certain extent, right? Because I'm a creature of yes, we should, and I'm a testament to this, a living testament of this, like pushing yourself beyond your limitations, or taking yourself out of your comfort zone, right? And exploring other things, new things, and actually doing it in enough time to see if it actually works. Not like, oh, I'm just gonna like try to meditate once or twice and then, oh, this is not working for me, that's it. Like, be consistent with it and see if it develops into, with you nurturing it, if it develops into something else. But for some people it may not, and that's okay too, because then that's just not your thing. That's not the thing for you. Even if maybe you feel like or think like, oh, if that's the thing that I'm most resistant towards, and that's the thing I should be kind of pushing myself towards even more. Yeah, okay, try that.
Mhm.
And if it's still not working and it's not getting you the results that, not that you expect, because we should go into things without expectation, but if it's not working for you, let's just keep it simple, right? Let's just keep
Right.
the vocabulary simple. If it's not working for you, that may not be the method in which you need to be doing. So
And I love
maybe
your tip.
something
Oh,
else.
sorry.
No, it's okay. I can. You have to interject because I can like go on and on and on forever. So
I love your tip about listening to music.
Mhm.
Because that to me, like it's, or a guided meditation, like those are the things that I need to try. But you're right. Like if it's not working, don't force it. But absolutely, I totally agree with that. Um, I wanted to tell you that like you said earlier, a perfect balance doesn't exist.
Mhm.
But how can you tell that realignment is needed?
I always say when you feel off, right? So intuitively, we know when something's just, we as human beings, we know, even if you don't know what it is, that's has you feeling this way. We usually know, like, I don't feel right today, like my mind is, I'm not clear in my mind, or I just feel off, or my body feels, let's say, sluggish, or I feel extra tired. And so those are the moments in which you can really like determine, again, that goes back to paying attention to you. right? Like yourself, even in those moments where we may be so consumed with doing other things, like we're working and we're, you know, I know you have your husband, you have a child, you have, now you're starting your podcast and you're doing your business, right? And then I'm sure you have your other responsibilities at home. And so we're trying to juggle and do all the things. And we have a tendency sometimes as humans to kind of like, oh, this doesn't feel right. Like this little joint hurts, or I have a little nudging headache and whatever, but I'm going to ignore it. And I think that's where we sometimes make the mistake, is ignoring the thing. We might not be able to address it right there and then in that moment. But it's like at some point, again, that pause and reflect, even if it's when your husband falls asleep, you put your child to sleep. And even if you're like, okay, I need to get to sleep too, because I need my hours of rest. But you take like a 5 or 10 minutes to just kind of sit with yourself and just kind of try to go through the day and go through to see what is causing you to feel out of balance. Recognition, I think recognizing what that is first and foremost is what's going to help people start to again determine, you know, how they get back in alignment and how they create more balance in their lives.
Okay. And I was also going to ask you how you deal with burnout, because you've got a lot going on. You've got a ton going on. So how do you keep from being burnt out? Like, how do you deal with that?
I don't know. I don't know why I'm not. Yeah, I feel like for me, with my lifestyle, it's like I had children younger. So I've always feel like I've always been on the go. And it was just a matter of the things that I have to do versus the things that I want to do. And was I willing to not do any of those things and drop the ball in different areas? And of course, yeah, I'm 48 years old. Like a lot of balls got dropped. Like that, that's just the reality of the situation, because we're not like super women, right? Or so, but for me, it's again listening to my body. So in January, I was pushing myself, again, because I enjoy all the different things that I do. And my body was like, you need rest. And I didn't listen to it, but I knew I needed to kind of just like chill out and just take a few days to like not do anything. And just because I had a week off, I work in education. And so I'm like, okay, and my children are grown. So all I have are my little grandbabies and my mom and stuff. So I'm like, I can, you know, play around with my schedule and like find some breaks just for me to kind of like not be on social media, not, you know, look at a screen all day, and just chill out and maybe read a book and unwind. And I didn't do that. And instead I just utilized that time off from my day job to do all these things for my business. And boom, January 1st in the new year, it was like universe, spirit, my ancestors, God, like everything was like all the divine beings in my life were like, and you're sick now. So like if you are choosing not to take a break, you're gonna be forced to take a break. And that's the thing, whether like for me, I say it's always my divine people that were like, nope, you need a break. But it, like your body, that goes back to paying attention to your body. If you don't listen to the cues that your body is sending you, or even if you're feeling overwhelmed, and you're kind of just like keep pushing it and pushing it, at some point you're going to either have a mental breakdown or a physical, your body's going to break down and you are physically going to get ill in some capacity, whether it's a cold or anything else. So really being mindful of you know what you're experiencing, how much you're doing. I have a planner now, so I do integrate days in my planner where I'm like, okay, if this is my day off, like no, I'm not going to do anything business related that day. But I'm also not going to throw myself in 100 and different directions and try to then do all the chores. So I try to make purposeful breaks in between my time so that I'm taking a break just for me, just to kind of, even if it's an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is, that I don't, that I'm not doing, like actively doing anything strenuous or that's gonna like overwhelm my mind, so that it can kind of keep me grounded to a certain extent. And that's really difficult for me because I'm a juggler. So I like to just continue to do and do and do and do and do and do and do. But we really sometimes just need to like hit the brakes and like stop for a moment. And that's one of the ways in which I would say try to do that in different, even if it's little moments of your life, in order to decrease that burnout. And ask for help. If you have it, ask for help. Being prideful. When I was young, I had 2 children young. I was working full time and I was going to college full time in the evenings and on the weekends. So honestly, if I didn't have my mom and my sister and the support of their fathers, like I would not have been able to do half of the things that I have accomplished up through this point. So, getting out of your ego, not being prideful, and being like, I can do all the things. No, sometimes we can't do all the things. And sometimes we need help. And it's okay to say, like, hey, I need a break. Like I just need, especially, I know it might be difficult for some persons in certain circumstances that really don't have many people to rely on. But if you do, ask for
Reach
it.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, reach out for sure.
Okay. If I could get personal with you for a second, how did you know that coaching and educating women about their overall wellness was your path?
So it actually started with me being a young mom
Mhm.
and going through that struggle, and then not being with their, breaking up with their fathers, because they're 2 children from 2 different fathers. And I was young. I was a bit of a wild child, hippie-ish, I guess, and for my day. And going through that and still wanting to succeed at other things. Even though, there were a lot of highs and lows. And experiencing that, but never giving up, being persistent, persevering, like no matter what. The one thing that I was not going to do was give up on myself, even in my lowest points, when I was just like, I didn't know, I didn't have a fucking clue like what I was going to do with myself, which direction I was going. But something always kept, this fire inside me kept saying like, nope, you have 2 young kids. You're not going to be a statistic, like you're a little Puerto Rican girl from the Bronx in New York City with with 2 babies from 2 baby daddies. That alone right there is like statistics, like all the stereotypes you can think of, were like just in my brain, even at a young age. And so I just kept like, nope, I'm going to push myself. I'm going to push myself. And then, that led me to wanting to do counseling with inner city youth, to help guide them in their path, because of the stuff, that I endured and I went through when I was younger. And then more recently, I was like, the more and more I spoke to women, and I'm connecting with more women within my circle as we're getting older, and we keep sharing our journeys, and I know their journeys, and then having conversations with like my mom and older women in the community, and then meeting, beautiful people like yourself and other people in these different spaces, right? That we put ourselves in these containers to like learn and grow different things, different tools that we were interested in. I kind of kept hearing these stories, and these stories of like, oh, wow, we're different women. We may come from different places, but there are still running themes here. There are still running themes of, feelings of shame or guilt. We're wounded. We're still wounded. Like we've left, our teen years, where, some of us are in our 20s, 30s, 40s. And even though we may have thought we healed, you never really heal, right? That's an ongoing, lifelong process. And things always arise at different points in your life. And then it's like I meet women also who are like in spaces that I've seen myself too, being a single parent, or going from corporate America to then wanting to change careers completely. And or maybe I have some friends that are like, they're married, they have the house, they have the car, they have the kids, and they're like, I'm not happy. They're not happy with their husbands or their car or their kids or whatever. They're not fulfilled. They feel like something is missing, like there's more. They're like, I'm more than just a wife and a mom, you know. And then for my single friends, it might be like, where did I go wrong? Why don't I have a husband? So it's all these different stories that have these same kind of running themes of this lack of fulfillment, and kind of just feeling stuck or unmotivated or lost, and trying to figure out how to just get there, how to start bringing back everyday fulfillment into our lives, even when we know that not every day is going to be rainbows and unicorns and the sun is going to be shining. Like, we're going to go through real shit. We're real people. But it's just a matter of, how do we handle that? Like, how do we handle those stressors? How do we handle the unexpected things that are going to occur in our lives, because they are? And how do we find gratitude in daily living despite things not being perfect, because nothing will ever be perfect. And so that really is what made me feel called to want to expand my counseling with inner city youth, to then say, I also want to work with women. I want to work with women, and I want to coach women, which I'm doing now. And I want to run a one-on-one container. And I love the spiritual component of it, which is how I bring in the tarot. But I use tarot for introspection, not for predictive reasons. So it's all about bringing the cards and using that as one modality to look back at self, and to bring in more self-love and more self-discovery. And then now I'm working on, in 2 months, I'll be facilitating my first women's circle, sacred circle.
Really?
So yeah, because I've been yearning now for this in-person connection, and I think we lost that along the way, especially when COVID hit, and it made everybody kind of like, the online space and technology keeps going, like, it keeps growing so rapidly, and everything is virtual. And because I'm older, maybe I miss those days when you're just like hanging out with somebody, like, in person, and you like can feel their energy, and have a conversation, and it's not over a screen. It's like, I'm actually looking into your eyes, but like, because you're right in front of me. And so I thought it was really important, and especially in the Bronx, especially in this community, I always, like my coach says, because I have a coach and a mentor, and she's always like, start where you're at. And I'm like, okay, so I want to do retreats eventually, but I'm like, I'm going to start with the women in my community. I'm from the Bronx. This is primarily where I was raised, other than when my dad was in the military and I bounced around a bit, but I was born here, primarily raised here. And I'm like, so this is where I want to start this journey of my life, of bringing women together in the community, for us to share our stories and connect with one another in a non-judgmental space.
That's beautiful. That's amazing.
That's a lot, right? I'm like,
I love it. I love it. So I was going to ask you about how you face resistance or adversity on your path, but listening to you, you serve others. Like, that's how you face adversity, is you just turn it into how you can serve.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. That's so inspiring. And how would you say that you face adversity?
Again, those key words, right, is the persistence and perseverance. And yes, servicing others, but I think where sometimes we fall short is we're so consumed with serving everyone else that we tend to neglect ourselves. So the one thing is to, for me, always bring it back to self. How am I serving myself? How am I being the best version of myself? How am I loving myself? How am I growing, continuing to grow and learn as a human being, as a woman, and for me as a woman of color, a Latina here on this earth, where I'm coexisting with other human beings, right? And for me, that's always going to start there. And it wasn't like that years ago, because years ago was always about everybody else, even though, you know, I may have done things that may have seemed like it was about self, but it was never really about myself. And if I was doing things, it was just always about someone else's approval of me, someone else's looking for love outside of myself in relationships. You start reflecting on all these things in your life, and then you're like, oh, you start putting the pieces together, and you're like, oh, okay, I see what was happening here. And the only way to truly grow from that is to start shifting how you're moving in this world, shift your mindset, shifting how you're responding, like I said, how you're responding to things, how you're reacting to things, shifting how you care for yourself, again, prioritizing yourself. And when you're doing those things, I find it you're in a more authentic place to truly be able to serve someone else. No, does it mean that I know more than someone else? Absolutely not. I just know my truth, and I know the journey that I've been on, and I know how I've been able to evolve and grow through that journey, even as painful as it may have been, with me having to confront my shadows instead of avoiding them, which I used to do. That avoidance piece was huge for me when I was young. And it's through all these lessons that I feel like I'm able to connect with other women. And then in sharing our stories and in working with one another, I get to know something that you're going to say, and I'm going to be like, light bulb. Yes, Misty. Like, yes, why haven't I thought about that? Why haven't I tried that? And then vice versa. So I feel like that's how I overcome any obstacles or challenges that come my way, is like always bringing it back to the self and realizing you've come a long fucking way, Janeen. Like
Yes.
I really have. And I still have so much more to go. Like I always say I'm dying at 100. So I'm like, I have a good 52 more years on this
Absolutely.
planet.
Yes.
So I'm like, I still have so much more to learn, and so much more to do. And it's beautiful to be able to share that with other women who are ready to step into their power as well, and who are finding their voice, and exploring what's possible for them.
That's amazing. That's amazing that being that authenticity that you were talking about, and having that be where you relate to others, and you can say something that they respond to, and they say something that you respond to. I just love that teamwork, that mentality. I love that. What advice would you give to someone who's still trying to find their path?
Definitely don't put the pressure of trying to think that everything has to be perfect. I think, that is probably for me, that has been the number one thing. Is there is no such thing as perfection, and we put so much pressure on ourselves to have things appear to be perfect or be perfect, and these are just added stress. These are some of these things are actually really unnecessary added stressors. And so it's kind of like, start just once you can kind of realize, like, no one's fucking perfect, I'm not perfect, it will never be perfect. You're already shifting your mindset, because now it's not that we shouldn't strive for more, or for things to be a certain way in which we desire. Absolutely, go for it. But once you start shifting it, you're shifting your mindset from this perfection mindset, then you can really start looking at things different. So and you're not, freaking out or getting super stressed or anxious about things, because you're like, okay, no, okay, there's that bump in the road, didn't go the way I planned. How do I move through this thing? And again, that's, those moments where you have to reflect. For me, everything's about reflection. It's like being in tune with my emotions and what's going on in my mental space, because your mental space really affects everything else, how you're feeling and your body and all these other things. So once you can start kind of shifting how you perceive things and how you look at things, it can start, slowly uh making things just go a little smoother, or be a little better in your life.
I love that. So, how do people find you online?
So I only have two. I mean, I have little things here or there, but the main two platforms would be my Instagram, which my handle is golden.gypsy.goddess. And then my website is goldengypsygoddess.com.
And I'll have that all in the show notes. And I
Thank
just,
you.
you have your circle that you're doing in the Bronx.
Yes.
And you also do one-on-one coaching as
I
well?
do. Yeah. So
Okay.
I'm gonna start facilitating the sacred circles. They will be held in the borough of the Bronx, but they're open to anyone. If someone's visiting from out of town and they want to buy a ticket and go to the circle, that's fine. If they're within the New York City area or Jersey or anywhere where they can drive here, they're welcome to do so as well. So it's not just for the community of women in the Bronx, but this is where it will be housed for the time being. And those sacred circles will consist of, every month is going to be a different theme that we will explore. And so there'll be different things, journaling and rituals, and maybe some yoga stuff, some movement, some sound bowl therapy. So the idea is to have a lot of different components any given month, depending on what the theme is. And I do still have my one-on-one coaching, and that's a ongoing enrollment. So that's one-on-one for 8 weeks. And that one is called Dare to Defy, because I feel like it was, that's pretty much how I've always lived my life. It's like, I'm going to do the damn things. No one is going to tell me because I'm a mom, or because whatever, I'm Latina, or because I'm a woman, that I can't thrive and live my life in which I desire and find fulfillment in that. So that's my Dare to Defy coaching program. And I do tarot readings as well. And I integrate the tarot and oracle with my coaching program as well. And so that's what I have going on now, and eventually retreats. But that's, a little further down along, one thing at a time. See, yes, this is it. I'm surprised I'm not burnt out, but I DM you, Misty, if I'm like, tell me to take a chill pill or something, because I'm just always like on the go.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for
Thank you.
sharing all of your amazing advice and all your tips. I'm going to use a lot of them.
Thank
And
you.
thank you so much.
I
And
appreciate it.
yes, I love you, and I'll see you later.
Okay, yes, we'll keep in touch. Okay,
Okay,
bye.
bye.